Welcome everybody to my chess stream here on lichess and Twitch. International Master William Paschall Sludgy on Twitch and Sparkle Horse on lichess. We're going to play some weekly blitz and classical chess here with the viewers. Commentary. See what's up. We've got the OBS working. Doesn't seem to be any problem there. We'll get underway in a few seconds here as we get some challenges. Good simul yesterday, guys. It was really fun. We had some interesting games. I will try to do a review of some of those games as the week goes by here. What's going on? Eastern Classical Arena. I think one of these days I'm going to think about playing in this. Eastern Classical, it started an hour ago. Yeah, it starts at 9. If we didn't have any challenges, we could jump in there and play. Let's jump in there and play a game, maybe? Actually jump in there and play a game for a minute here. Let's give it a try just to play one game here while we're waiting for challenges and the stream to start. We've got a game here. Wow. Fahad 2200 Ikes. That looks suspicious, man. He's got this enormous rating. Wow. Alright, well, there's always a chance somebody's a computer. There's nothing you can really do to avoid it completely. He's playing very fast. For a guy who's pretty weak in blitz, basically, 2006, he seems very confident. Well, no rated games in the stream. Making an exception here just to get the stream started. I had no challenges. Now you guys are challenging me now. Shevadingen, Lord Alamo. I jumped in there and played this game. This guy is definitely scary. Probably going to crush me. He's 2,000 in blitz, over 3,000 games and blitz, and now he's 2,200 in classical. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Alright. And look how confident he is. He can just move instantly. Doesn't even think. I'm not sure about this line for black, honestly. It's, he offered me a draw. I'm going to take it. I don't like this opponent. It looks suspicious. This is very strong for white. He's making instant moves. His rating's like 200 points higher than it should be. I'll probably lose if I continue this game, so I'm not liking this. Anyway, well, it was an interesting idea, but I'm going to get out of there because I don't like the look of that. 2,000 in bullet, 2,200. He played the opening perfectly. Actually, D4 is criticized by Richard Palliser in his book, Beating the Unusual Openings. Beating the flank openings or something like that. But D4, you don't think that's a suspicious account? I don't know, man. I mean, he just played perfect moves, and D4 is actually an improvement that's misanalyzed or misevaluated by Palliser in his book. So, I mean, I've lost too many games in this position. I don't trust it. I'm happy to take a draw there. But, alright. You don't think that's a suspicious account? Well, I mean, you'd think he would take a little bit of time playing the perfect moves. I'll take my chances with a draw. It's even kind of suspicious he offered a draw, in a way. I mean, anyway. Shevadingen, what's up, man? 5-5, let's play. We'll give away a few rating points there. So, it's 5-5 classical. Welcome, everybody, to my stream. 300 higher on classical. Well, I didn't, you know, it's weird. I mean, I don't see that, you know, with my rating. I find the classical points harder to get than the blitz rating. So I'm kind of like confused. Where does this 200 point inflation start and where does it end? Because, I mean, you know, it's just, my blitz is, okay, my blitz is, yeah, it's 100 points higher than my classical. But I'm not really understanding. At the lower rating pools, there seems to be this trend where everyone has like 200 points higher in classical. I'm not really sure where that starts and where it ends, though, because I don't see it, you know, at my rating level. I'm just not seeing it. Yeah, anyway, I felt uncomfortable about that. That line he played e3, the best move, and then d4, which is again criticized by Palliser, but probably one of the two best moves in that position. And I've had a really tough struggle with that. So the computer likes d4 too. This is an older book by Palliser from like 2006 or something, and he just completely misevaluates that. That is trouble for black. Probably d4 or the older plan of like e4, playing maybe d3 and e4. So I didn't think I was going to get, such a tough opponent there in the first round. I mean, but it's just random, I guess. Okay, yesterday I lost a game to Jan Brown in my stream, where he played this somewhat unusual plan of like later a6 and b5. I played really badly, hesitantly, and quickly at a bad position. Resigned a little early. I didn't actually lose any material, but I had a very bad position. I lost a couple games in the simul yesterday. In a few of them, actually both of them, I resigned a little prematurely. In two of the games I lost. But when you're playing like 25 boards and you kind of see the writing on the wall, I think it's okay to resign sometimes. Yeah, I misplayed the move order here. How did I do that? Or you just played a weird move order. Knight f6, g6, bishop f4, bishop f5. No, there's nothing wrong with what I did. Queen b3, queen b6. e3. I guess I have to play e3 here. It's been a while since we played this line, Shevardingen. I guess e3 is forced. So, I'm just being practical. Well, yesterday, I had an interesting experience. I played a game on my simul, and it said I made one inaccuracy. You guys want to guess? You guys want to guess what my one inaccuracy was? It's really funny. One of my simul games yesterday was like 9 cent pawn loss with one inaccuracy. Now, why would I be asking you to guess what it is? How could you possibly guess what it is? Well, I think you could if you've experienced the same thing as me. You can't trust this engine, especially if you're running it on a slow computer, or if your browser is Firefox, you have a slower engine, slower computer running. We can't trust the analysis too much to evaluate our games, so 1 f4, that's really bad. Yeah, I could kind of identify with that. Now I played g3. I was like, wow, that's kind of hardcore, man. I mean, you could see like the computer criticizing f4 for being an inaccuracy. But now we've gotten to the point where g3 is an accuracy. I was pretty shocked, actually. And it said, commentary was funny. It says g3 dubious inaccuracy. e4 is the best move. This is what the computer says. It's awesome. It's like Bobby Fischer's like secretly come back to life as a chess engine. I guess we're back in theory here. I had this horrible game at Zalakaros where I lost to this kind of strange guy in this position. Oh, that game broke my heart. I played this strange hallucination in the opening. What's the highest time you accept? It's, where am I here? 8-3, that's the longest, if you mean longest, yeah. 8 minutes to 3 seconds. If you guys want to play anything between 5 minutes and 8 minutes base time with a small increment between 3 and 5 seconds, although only for the shorter time controls would I accept a 5-second increment. Otherwise, the games just get too long. Alright, let me just adjust myself here to the situation. I mean, b4, I played h3 in Zalakaros, And that move's interesting. Nothing wrong with it. We can play it here. I think our moderator is taking the morning off. I'm not sure. He might be here. But both b4 and h3 are good for white. At least white can maintain some kind of small edge. This is like black's most solid approach, I think, in this variation. But I kind of like what my opponent John Brown did yesterday. He plays a kind of a6, c6, a6, b5 idea in this line, which seems weird. I mean, to do like a kingside fianchetto and then do like a6, b5 later, as if you had all the time in the world. But h6. A6 might be theory. Not the main move probably, but reasonable. And now we could play knight e5. It's been a while since we played this line. Maybe knight e5, maybe bishop e2. I know that g4 sometimes is an idea. G4, bishop e4, knight takes e4. Black's pretty solid in these positions. Pretty solid. Perihelions, welcome guys. I'm still a little bit sleepy. We'll wake up here with a coffee. But overall, we had interesting games in Simul last night. Every week on Sunday, I'm doing a Simul, 6:30 p.m. CEST, Central European summertime. I think summertime must be almost over. When are we changing time? We've got different change times for the Western world and Central Europe. It's very annoying. 94. This is the classic, El Clasico. 94. Now what? G4 at some point? Kind of risky, kind of weakening my king side. We could just castle. Looks like a solid option. Taking is okay, but nothing special. If I take, he'll probably take with the bishop. Last week I had my downstairs neighbors doing construction. Now we have like the lateral neighbors, the next door neighbors doing construction. But I don't think you guys can really hear that. Luckily I closed the window. I love living in an old building where every apartment needs like renovation. I like the knight on a5. Don't know if any good. Knight on a5, I like it too, but it just takes time to get it there. Black has to kind of play passively in order for that to happen, I would think. Yeah, I mean, in a utopian world, it's nice to get it there. I think this position is equal, objectively. It's hard to get an edge with this variation with white. It's just kind of a solid line. I don't think I'm really expecting to get an advantage, just get a playable position and not be worse. It's kind of the goal. I started playing this variation in the spring, and I'm kind of underwhelmed by it, to be honest. Rook e8 looks like probably best move. You could move the other rook to e8. I don't know why you need the a rook anymore at this stage. So that's my only question about that. We don't have anything here. Looks like we're just maintaining equality. And he's going to break with e5, and maybe I have to be careful not to be worse. You could consider knight e5. I'm going to trade pieces, and well, let's try not to lose on time. That's about all we can do. Not lose on time. Who is calling for knight on knight on a5? Anybody? Certainly an interesting possibility here. Now f4. Is that an interesting possibility? Well, he just takes with a pawn. I'm just in trouble if I do that, probably. Alright. I'm not sure I achieved anything with this maneuver. Ultimately, probably just wasted time. Lord Alamo, welcome to the stream. Man, we got nothing. Just nothing for white. Of course, what else? Can't maintain the d4 point. Rook d1 walks into bishop c2. So now I'm actually kind of happy about that exchange. I get to put my knight on d4. I think knight takes e5 would have been more aggressive. Would have been a more aggressive for Scheveningen to play knight takes and maintain the bishop on the long diagonal. This trading pieces probably helps white a little bit. Though he's objectively okay here, I would prefer for black. And this move I think is debatable. You know, maybe bishop d3 is actually interesting there. So I'm not sure that you played that right. I mean, now you're ending up in a position where you could have a bad bishop. Though objectively not in danger, you know, there are ways you could find to lose this position, basically. So I'm not sure. You're running a risk by keeping the white square bishop on the board against a knight. It's probably a good enough bishop that you're concretely not worse, but the potential to lose is there. It's kind of my argument. Potential to lose. b5. Any sort of tricks here? Is he gonna play? Like, should I play g3, f4? Putting everything on dark squares. Kind of double edge. I wanted to play h4 actually, but having second thoughts about it. But if I have time, I would. I guess I would. Okay, we don't have a lot of time. That box up in the corner keeps making me think there's an update. It looks like one of the update boxes. h4. It's probably going to be totally locked. I could take on g4, but I don't really like this structure too much. Wow, f5. I think king g6 would be a little more flexible. Although I have some sort of b5 breakthrough attempt. This is kind of risky. It's really unnecessary. Unnecessary to sacrifice a pawn here. But objectively, it's still a draw. We'll see. Yeah, I think that's right, because if you don't do that, I mean, if you take the other way, I think you'd be in trouble. But I would just... I'll just move back and forth here. After, you know, if you take the other way, I'll play c6 and have some chances, but this way it's a draw. Okay, not the greatest game by me, but you played very solidly. 7 again. I just think that, like, knight takes e5, kind of playing for a win would be more aggressive than trading bishops on e5. Other than that, you played fine. Lord Alamo, 7-5. The game was kind of boring, man. I mean, it was pretty bad. I don't really like that line that much. It doesn't give white much active prospects. Need to play the sharper stuff. Actually, I kind of started playing it as a sort of stopgap because I didn't have time to, like, get up to date in the Slav theory, because I haven't played very much in the last 8 years. I was a little bit scared to go into coming back to chess this spring. I was a little scared to go into sharper lines that I don't really know the up to the minute theory. So queen c2, it's just kind of a way to get like a solid position without having to know tons of theory. All right, Lord Alamo now playing a classic English symmetrical. I'm going to play e3. He plays e6. So another very exciting game in prospect here. I should start playing e4. Well, I do play e4, but I haven't today yet. Now cd, that's kind of a risky move in a sense. d5 is the semi-Tarrasch. Now we have Panov, kind of passive variation of the Panov, but still very solid for black. I agree, when you get knight versus bishop, I have no more winning chances. Yeah, knight d3, I thought maybe bishop d3. Bishop d3. And you're not worse, for sure. Okay, you're not really worse anyway after knight d3, but there are ways you could lose, you know, if you play badly after that. A weak player could definitely find a way to lose that position with white squared bishop versus knight. We have kind of Queen's Gambit accepted here by transposition. You have to find another line against that. Well, I have to find another line against the Slav because it's too passive. I lost in that line ridiculously in June just because I had a hallucination. But anyway, it's so easy for black to equalize. So here, yeah, I guess bishop e3 is kind of passive. So if we want to play aggressively, maybe queen d3. I'm not sure though. You know, this is best with this extended fianchetto type idea. I mean, if I had a6, b6, I guess queen d3 would be a normal move. But I'm not sure if it's right here or not. The idea is to play rook d1. How do you apply for a game here? Nope code. Well, you just have to challenge me on lichess. If you're logged on to lichess, you can like click on my name and challenge me that way. Sparkle Horse on lichess, as you can see, is my account name. We're missing our moderator today to help you guys. He's taking the morning off. He worked hard last night for a draw against me in my simul. Now bishop a2. Yeah, I mean, this is the question. I mean, I don't know if black wants to play b4, it kind of weakens his structure, so that's a double-edged thing to do. Queen d3, bishop g5, rook ac1, and I mean, maybe my rooks would be better off on d1 and e1 in this type position. Okay, now, knight to d5 is a pretty questionable move, but his bishop's still on this diagonal. So if I play knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, I have to watch out for that piece developing actively. And I'm not sure if I want to how I want to do this. Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, h3 makes a lot of sense. We have a small advantage, something Michael Adams would be kind of content with, you know. We don't want him to trade off his bad bishop. The other is knight on c6 doesn't really do anything here. He's got pressure on the d5 pawn. Computers are very good at these kind of positions, I've noticed, with white or with black. In these Panov type positions, well, they're good at every kind of positions, but a lot of times when I was playing black in the Panov, the computers would find these symmetrical positions that look like, it looks like, oh, it should be equal, but one side or the other is usually better because they're just more tied down to their, whoever's kind of more tied down to their pawn. And in this case, it seems like black, you know, is got to be tied down with the queen on d8. We've got the better bad bishop going to f4. So I think white, you know, a minimalistic player like Michael Adams, someone who really excels with slight advantages, accumulation of advantages, would Karpov would really like this kind of position for white. Rook c1. We've got all the pieces in play, no problems, good bishops both. There's even the potential of like knight e5 sometimes. That's probably not going to happen, but one mistake and black can equalize here, of course. But it's a very low risk sort of position for me. In our game, you recommended knight takes e5, but I was not sure about that because I was afraid of knight takes e5, knight a5, rook a7. Maybe you're right. It could be. Could be. Queen d7, very awkward move, threatening maybe queen f5, but he can't because he's tied down to it. So the queen is very awkward, tied down to the c6 knight, tied down to the d5 pawn. At the very least, I can play knight to g5 here. Because it doesn't actually do anything per se. That's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah, I don't know. Knight g5 actually might have been a weak move. This was a weak move by me. Waste of time. Dangerous now, he says. Well, knight g5, I think I went the wrong way. I was afraid of like rook e4 though, in some lines. Unfortunately, I think I have to just passively defend here. Maybe even bishop e3. Bishop e3, knight takes d4. Is a problem. So I have to play this. And then black gets a little bit active. So I think I played way too routinely here. Still half asleep. You guys tired me out for my simul last night. Anyway, guys, welcome to my stream. You can also check out my channel on YouTube, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Please subscribe and like if you go over there. I try to upload all the streams. And black just dropped a piece. So, yeah, that is one of the problems with black position. This b5 and d5 don't really gel. You're kind of got a bad bishop on c8, and it's like an oasis in the desert. I think the black's under pressure positionally, and then you make a blunder because you see the oasis, you know, the possibility of trading queens, releasing the pressure. But I mean, you had rook e4 there, so my whole plan was dubious. I mean, in this position, rook e4 looks like after that black's okay. I'm forced to play bishop to, I think I'm forced to play bishop e3, and it seems like black is, I don't know, I mean, black's not worse, basically. So guys, if you want to challenge me between 5 and 8 minutes with a small increment. Mirza Yokubadze is challenging me to 10-0, and I'm not doing 10-0 now. I did play a game in the Eastern Classical there, but it was just kind of for fun. Please challenge me, re-challenge me to like 8-3 or 7-3 like Shaggy Britches and Ghost Mind here. Challenge me to 8-3, 7-3. If you want to play, please re-challenge me to an increment game. Yeah, Cheveninga might be right about that. I didn't like that, but knight a5 might be good. So last game, yeah, I made a mistake playing knight g5. I'm just thinking optimistically that black has to take, but g6 just repels my attack. It was pretty silly of me to play that way. But I like those kind of structures for white. It's sort of a thankless position for black where there's no winning chances and you just kind of have to suffer. So I think that in our last game, black should, really not play knight d5 so early in the defense there. All right. We dropped a few classical rating points here with a quick draw. I was afraid of my opponent. I was also afraid of my position in the one Eastern Classical game we played there. I don't like that line, so I got a suspicious opponent, and maybe not. To me, suspicious. I don't know him, but we also had a suspicious position, which is more important. He was also playing fast, so I decided to agree a draw. I don't understand him offering a draw to someone who's like 200 points higher either. I mean, that's kind of weird. Why would I want to accept a draw? Why would anybody want to accept a draw? Like he knows what I'm thinking or what? It's kind of strange. I kind of feel like he's offering me a sensible way out. As I told Nick DeFermian before he lost on time, I offered him a draw with our flags hanging, and he said shut up. And then later he lost on time, and Danny Kopech said you offered him a sensible way out. I feel like that guy I played in the first round of the Eastern Classical Tournament there was offering me a sensible way out. And if I declined his draw, I'd end up like DeFermian. Okay, queen d2 here. We get a lot of this. I mean, you could play d5 if you want to, even a tempo down probably. It probably almost equalizes, but I'm playing for a win with black here. So against a low-rated opponent, playing for a win. I could play knight takes d4 too, but that can wait till next move. I listened that you said rook e4, but whenever I move my rooks out, I lose them, said Lord Alamo. Yeah, I mean, rook e4, though, I mean, you kind of have to. You're lucky you have that. It forces me to completely retreat my pieces, If nothing else, just temporarily put the rook on e4. Later, you can pull it back. I mean, I'll probably try to kick it out right away if I can, with like knight d2, but then I'm going backward again, so it looks really good for you. And whatever I do, I'm just like backpedaling in that position after rook e4. Kind of feels like white is certainly not better anymore. And knight g5 was a really childish and sort of optimistic move. I mean, sometimes in those type positions, it just forces a trade, a bishop takes g5, and that's what I thought. But now f3 is a good move from Silly Turtle. What else did he have, though, honestly? I mean, queen e3 is probably okay. But he has a position where there's really no forward plan. Not really any forward plan for white here. Without f4 and his kingside the way it is, he probably doesn't want to play g4 necessarily. What do I want to do? Queen a5 walks into knight d5 traps, which is always a fun thing. Not a lot of excitement here playing this type position. It's kind of funny. I mean, watch people who are like amateurs play the white side of this bishop e2, so-called classical dragon, and like nobody knows that you're supposed to play knight to b3. That's the traditional way of playing these positions, but you have to get to kind of like 2000 before you learn that idea of knight b3. Most players below expert strength wouldn't like to retreat their knight to b3 voluntarily, and I think that's a very rational and natural sort of instinct. Okay, we're going to go into kind of blockade mode here. Dark squares. It's like a Marazzi type position. See white 9-5. Welcome to my stream. I'm streaming from Budapest, Hungary, for those of you that don't know me. I'm an international master from the United States originally. We are based in Budapest, and getting back into the game of chess after a number of years, kind of like inactive I've been streaming since March and planning some tournaments maybe in the future. Thinking of going to a tournament in Hungary here in November in Harkine, a 9-round Swiss tournament, and I'm also thinking of going to Gibraltar. That's the new plan. Gibraltar, January, there's a very strong tournament, and maybe go with a friend of mine to that. King H1. A silly turtle playing good today. Playing well, I should say. Not a lot of exciting games. Not a lot of exciting openings so far. And I guess it's my fault. I played 2 flank openings type stuff with white. Actually, d4. d4, knight f3. So now the dark squares start to get a little weaker after a4. d4, b4, b2. Silly turtle is 1300. Yeah, you're playing better. This is a big improvement over the last couple games. Very solid position for white here. Now I don't know which rook to use. I guess the a rook. Sometimes this rook is useful along the a file. It doesn't look like it's easy for white to put any pressure on that pawn though. I might need the other rook like on e8 or to protect f7. But I'm not happy with the level of excitement in the games we played so far. The first game was a quick draw against a guy in the Eastern class, or Eastern Classical. The second game was against Scheveningen, a kind of boring Slav, where I was white. And then our third game. Now here I don't have to take right away on b5. Third game was a little more interesting, but then kind of not the most exciting position in a pan of attack. Silly turtle, knight b5. Wow, that's a pretty interesting move. I can play knight c5. Then I let his knight go to d4. I feel like I shouldn't let him, bring this knight to the center. I should chop it off. Play with knight versus bishop. This looks fairly solid for black. I mean, knight c5 or knight f6. Problem with c5 is it obstructs my rook. I could also just play something like rook c7 and just admit that I'm not better. Knight f6. Or knight c5. Knight c5 gets in the way of all my pieces in this particular position. It gets in the way of my queen, in the way of my rook. Pretty far away from defense of my king. I don't think there's a question of a6 or a5 being better or worse. They're just kind of different types of plans. But I can understand what you're saying there. Just that I'm kind of a specialist in the dark square blockade, and one of my favorite plans. So I don't think there's right or wrong. It's a different strategy. That's all. This thing is a bit awkward, having to keep that protected. I think we'll just reorganize. Rook c5, and then pull the queen back. You could possibly even triple. Eventually we'll play b6 and free the queen from the duty of protecting that pawn on a5. But I think at this point I'm fairly confident I'm okay. I mean, does he really want to play like c4 with his bishop on b5? Not exactly the best situation in the world there. And now his pawns are split after b4, so I think I prefer black at this point. Threatening rook takes c2. He could play d5 now. I'm not sure that it achieves anything. d5, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, queen b2 check, knight back to f6. Does destroy his central pawn, but I'm not sure that really brings me any concrete benefit. I'd like to stop a5. We have chances on the dark squares here. His bishop is very bad. He's basically playing without a piece on half the board. I mean, the white square bishop is not even present on the king side here, whereas my pieces can all work over there on the king side. If I'm able to start a king side attack on the dark squares, rook d1 now looks rather routine. So I could still play d5. But again, it doesn't seem to really do anything. I mean, it frees my position a bit, but I think it just ends up, it may just end up kind of helping white in a way. Rook a8, not the greatest, but it keeps him a little bit tied up. But I don't have to keep the rook on a8, just kind of till I find another plan. I was going to play rook h5. I think it's hard for white to improve his position, and it's easier for black to improve. h5, h4. Whoa, he played h4. That's probably almost losing by force. But now d5. Now d5 is very tempting. Or rook h5 first. Probably best. With Silly Turtle playing quite quickly. d5. I don't think he saw the threat. Something of a problem now. You have to play the position that really you're comfortable with. This goes back to what Nope Code says about playing a6. In my experience, that's totally normal plan, but not one that's particularly dangerous. And I'm very, very comfortable in the dark square strategy position. So for me, I mean, it's much more natural to play a5 and to be in some kind of situation where I understand what I'm trying to do. So play the kind of positions or kind of plans that you feel comfortable with, you've had success with. That's more important than, you know, what's objectively best, I guess. Shaggy Britches is 8-3. Thanks Mirza for re-challenging me. Andrea Peroni, Perihelians is back. So Shaggy Britches 8-3. White had a perfectly okay position, but it started to go downhill when he played c4. You don't want to block that bishop, you know, on b5. I don't think he's really better, but I don't think he should have really been worse either after that. But c4 seals in his bishop on b5. So Lord Alamo finally, Stockfish doesn't like my suggestion of rook e4. Interesting. You're positionally better in any line. Yeah, that's the problem with that structure. The symmetrical structure favors white, or favors whichever side has the better, more actively developed pieces. So Shaggy Britches, this is a new opponent. He's got a relatively new account, relatively consistent ratings, which is like, that's normal. I don't understand why some people are 200 points higher. Yeah, it's one thing if you're like really bad at bullet chess. I would be probably... I could probably be like 2,300 in bullet, but I don't think I would be higher than that without practicing, extensively. Now g6, and we could play e5 right away. That actually is quite dangerous for black. Looks like a bad move order. e5 and threats of e6 sometimes. Got to be very careful in the pier. It's King's Indian, not to allow knight d7 positions, this kind of e5, e6 sort of threat. I did play both openings, King's Indian and Peerts. Have played. So it looks like white's better here. Not winning, but I totally smash his pawn structure. Silly turtle. Yeah, no, you played the opening fine. I mean, it's a little bit like, as I said, there's no forward plan. When you play a kingside castles and the dragon and you play f3, I've discussed this on the stream before. It's solid, but there's no, there's no attacking plan left. I mean, g4 is very weakening to the kingside. So generally I don't recommend, that, but it's still solid enough that it's not bad. Now knight g5, black doesn't really have a move. After knight g5, does he? Well, he does have a move. Well, this is interesting. Knight g5, he has a move. But still, even if whatever happens here, I mean, the pawn structure is a catastrophe for black, so worst case scenario, I have compensation for my sacrificed pawn, but he does have a move here, barely, I think. Who do you consider as a deep player? Think of a deep player. Yeah, I feel like chess has kind of moved away from deep players a little bit. Now you had to play knight on d to e5 there. That's the only move that defends f7. Think of deep players. You think of strategic players. Like a classic strategist like Botvinnik or something like that, who was world champion and a strong one. I mean, they're all deep. Kasparov was pretty deep. Fischer. But the thing is that modern chess is moving toward faster and faster time controls. I feel like that's moving away from depth and more toward practicality, and that's why I'm not a huge fan of Magnus Carlsen. It just feels like he's the greatest practical chess player in history, but as far as deep goes, I don't think he's any deeper than any other world champion, or not as deep as some probably. Karpov, I would think the more strategic players, Botvinnik, Karpov, Kasparov to some degree, but Kasparov was like a lot opening preparation, attacking play. He was very deep, of course, in his own way. But I would think that Botvinnik and Karpov, Petrosian, kind of more strategic-minded players. What do you think of the Boris Ivanov scandal? That's this Bulgarian guy, right? Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really that active at all when this stuff was going down, you know. So I even now I don't know all the details, you know. But I mean, it's something that's going to happen, isn't it? I mean, there are going to be players who cheat. Sebastian Feller. No new news there. I mean, tournaments have to be alert, you know. I mentioned that at Zalakaros there was almost no security. It's like, as far as like letting people use their mobile phones, the players weren't allowed to have mobile phones when I played the last tournament in June. The players weren't allowed to have mobile phones in the tournament hall. But like, the mothers and parents of kids could have their mobile phones, and they were like using them like before the games in the tournament hall and stuff. I mean, like, what kind of security is that? So we have to be very, like, you know, aware of the fact that it's a serious problem. It's unfortunate, and it's going to happen. What else can you say? Not sure what I want to do here. I mean, I'm winning. We're up the exchange, but I don't like this knight on g4. h3. Just develop my pieces. We've got to get rid of this guy. Maybe even f3. Knight e4 is good, but then bishop f5. I'm not really sure what I want to play here. It's just difficult to make a decision. I want to develop all my pieces. I could just castle kingside, but yeah, the Borislav Ivanov scandal. Well, yeah, very old news, right? But I think it brings the issue up of how to police this kind of thing. You know, tournaments have to be very, very serious about preventing people from cheating. There was almost no cheating prevention when I played the last tournament in Zalakaros. I was even paranoid of one of my opponents leaving the board. But all that we can do is, yeah, speculate. All the time here on the stream, I have opponents, and because it happens, I'm very paranoid, you know, that people are cheating. But it does turn out that, like, there's more false positives than there are actual positives. So honestly, I think, you know, probably like 75% of the people I suspect of cheating are probably innocent, you know. So we have to be very careful about making accusations. Yeah, it just seems like they played a perfect game, but when you go back over it later, you realize they didn't quite play a perfect game. They could have in fact been human. You know, in the heat of battle, it seems like a possibility, but I think we need to be open about it. We need to you know, not like hide it like it's a taboo subject. First of all, it's a very real problem. I don't play really much on chess.com, but the other day I played on chess.com, and one game a week is the most I ever play on that site. Just for fun, I decided to try to play a game. Immediately, my first opponent was a computer, and there was no doubt, you know, this guy won his last like 49 games and had one draw. That was the record of his last 50 games. In blitz, whatever, he was 49.5 out of his last 50, and played like a computer against me. And then I was like, well, I was thinking, I never play on chess.com, but it suffers from a similar problem that the Internet Chess Club does, and that's the fact that, you know, they don't have incentive to punish people for cheating because they're charging people membership fees, and this is a conflict of interest because they want to collect money, but they don't want to kick out paying members for cheating with computers. And I was like, well, how do I report a cheater here? And I was looking through the site, and I don't really like chess.com. I never did. But I was like shocked that like it's almost impossible to report for, it's very difficult to actually report someone for cheating. Like you have to find some obscure form and then like fill it out, and it's ridiculous. Like it's very hard to do. It should be easy to do, but the reason it's difficult to do is they don't want to have to go to the trouble of detecting people for cheating, and they also don't want to have to kick out paying members. So there's this conflict of interest. Online chess sites that charge you for paying memberships, they don't want to kick out people. And that's the advantage of lichess, that we're not paying a membership, so they can, with no problem just kick out cheaters. Of course, they'll make a new account, but that's a different issue here. So we have people making multiple accounts. So there's no easy solution, really. And the same is, in tournament chess, if you get caught, though, you are going to pay a steep fee in not being able to play anymore. So they have to be careful about that. But proving it is not easy. Yeah, I mean, people are smart cheating, so you can't rely on every single move they played exactly correlates to the engine. I mean, nobody's going to be stupid enough to do that, I remember back in like 1994, the first like over-the-board cheating scandal took place at the World Open in Philadelphia, where this guy called himself von Neumann, and it was like using a computer, moves relayed from a hotel room upstairs via headset, and he was basically playing every single move he could exactly as the computer would have him play them. But a modern cheater isn't going to do that. No one's stupid enough to do that. You have to be a smart cheater, like, I guess Sebastian Feller or whatever. And you just, especially, well, I was talking about this with Sabo Gergo, who's a grandmaster from Romania. Basically, the best cheaters are the ones who are very strong players, who know how to, would know how to cheat in a smart way. You don't want somebody like the guy who cheated in 1994, who didn't even know the rules of the game barely. That's not the kind of person you'd want to have like cheating. That's what they did. That's how absurd it was that this guy like didn't even know like basic fundamental like problems and how to like do a mate in two when he was asked after the tournament. So that was funny. That was over 20 years ago. But I was there when it happened, and we were watching the guys' games like as it was unfolding, basically. Now what? Bishop e3 is an interesting move. Shaggy Britches hanging on here. Well, okay, this is exactly what Sabo Gergo said. He said, this is a 2550 GM. He said that basically the danger is like very, very strong players cheating, and like you don't even have to like get relayed the moves. All you'd have to have is like a computer engine analyzing in the critical moment, and you don't even need to get the moves. You just need somebody to come into the room and like give you a signal, like when in one moment you should really look really hard, So all you need is like a head nod or some kind of signal that this is the critical moment. Now you've got to really look for the forced win, and that's it. That's all the cheating you need is like a critical hint in one moment, and that's enough to tip the scale. So you don't need like blatant cheating to win tournament games. You would just need a little bit of help. And so it's very, very dangerous. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of worried about the future of chess. This is a very important defensive move. If I didn't have this, black would have a little bit of legitimate counterplay here. You need one grandmaster at the tournament, another grandmaster in the hotel room, watching the game live with the computer engine. And then when the critical moment arises, he can come down and like just nod his head or make a hand signal, and the other grandmaster knows like this is the position where he really needs to look for like the forced win or something. That's like really smart cheating that could happen, and it's kind of like there's no way you could ever stop that from happening, and practically no way, other than forbidding any sort of other players in the room. You'd have to do it like a scholastic tournament where mommy and daddy are not allowed in the room under any circumstances. That's probably the best. Here I'm going to look for some piece exchanges because Shaggy Britches is really hanging on here, and what I want to do is simplify, because he has like very problematic counterplay. And this trade and bishop e3, and now trade another piece. And slowly we should be able to win. Is advanced chess becoming a thing? Well, I think it's been a thing for a while. Yeah. But hybrids. But very difficult to stop it. Anyway, sort of sad. But we have to police it the best we can. Any sort of mind game, is going to be endangered by computers. Shaggy Britches with the great defense, man. Seriously, he's defended as best as can be done. Eventually, I guess I can create a passed pawn on the king side here. Trading rooks would be a good idea. But I'm not really sure how to achieve that. Okay, he just gave up on time. Tough game. Ghost Mind. Ghost Mind is up. We're going to play e4 again. So anyway, that's enough depressing talk about computers and chess. Try to be more optimistic. Guys, I'm here every Monday to Friday streaming Blitz and Classical Chess on lichess 10 to 12:30 CEST. I'm going to offer Ghostmine a take back, something he wouldn't do against me. You can see this one in the column here. That's when I lost my queen on a touch move thing. D4. But it's sort of silly to end the game 3 moves, isn't it? Now, bishop f5. Usually black plays knight f6 or bishop f6 or c6. Knight f6 or c6. Now, why is bishop f5? Why is bishop f5 considered not as good? Because of like queen f3. Queen f3 is defended by the queen. So I'm sort of unconvinced. We could play queen f3 and then c6 anyway. And then I have something like d5. But it looks kind of unclear. I mean, bishop takes c2, not so clear. Queen f3, c6. Queen f3, c6, d5, bishop takes c2. I guess I have a strong attack, but it's not that convincing, honestly. A Scandinavian tilts me. Yeah, it seems like I want to punish it really bad. Of course, I played knight f6 for years, but I know it's not really very reliable for black. I've had a tough time. The Scandinavian's going through a real trendy period right now. Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about various cheaters at chess tournaments. It's just a problem we have to live with. Bishop to f5. Alright, let's try this. This should be interesting anyway. I'm not sure if Ghostmind actually listens to the stream or not. I don't really have a clue. So I don't know if he gets any feedback from my moves, or he just plays without listening to the stream. I think he probably did listen to the stream, because he was angry one time about something. He must have been tuned in. Been a long time ago though. Queen f3, attacking b7, attacking the bishop on f5. I thought this is interesting. There's got to be a concrete reason why people don't play bishop f5. There must be something wrong with it. I mean, there is the indirect pressure on f7 from the queen as well, but I'm not really sure. Playing sometimes d5. What's my idea, by the way, in the case of knight c6, we play bishop b5. Now, queen b6 just drops a piece. So I already offered a take back. Yeah, okay, Lord Alamo asked about queen d8 or queen a5 or other queen moves. It's a good question, and the jury is still out. I mean, queen d8 seems ridiculous to me. It was always condemned by the older theory on the basis of some games where I guess the stronger player just annihilated the other guy. Maybe there was a Fischer game. I don't remember, but yeah, I mean, queen d8 seems very hard to believe that there's a lot of real, value in that move as opposed to the other moves. But it's not bad, It's kind of like playing Caro-Kann. So its strength lies in its I think, being a kind of provocative psychological move, that it just sort of makes white angry, and it can make the other player sort of tilt, like it's a kind of move of disrespect or something. You could just play queen d5 back to d8 and I'm going to beat you with whatever, I think that some players with white, including myself, can sort of tend to tilt against queen d8. I want to punish it so badly that I'll start playing recklessly. So there's a certain psychological element to queen d8. It's not as bad as it looks. That would be... I wouldn't play it personally as as a move that I believed in as the best move. Queen a5 seems like the best move. Queen d6 has a lot of independent, interesting variations, but it's lost its surprise value. So I don't know. I mean, I still think that queen a5 is probably black's best move. But the others are interesting. Queen d6 losing its surprise value. Totally been analyzed, to death in the last 10 years. The queen d6 variation in particular. Yeah, I mean, I think Gary's line... Gary here on the stream, not Gary K. Gary Hertz says the g3. Well, there's several different, move orders of g3. But the general idea of playing g3 and bishop f4, and that's one of the best lines against the queen d6. But it's definitely the riskiest move for black, and much different stylistically than queen a5 or queen d8. Much more provocative, more aggressive, whereas, you know, if you're playing this in a queen d8, queen a5 variation, black again plays Caro-Kann style. You know, it's really not meant to be a wildly aggressive defense, it's meant to be a solid defense. Here, bishop d6. Might be in my best interest. Get rid of this guy. Outside the pawn chain. Well, I'm up a piece, so we don't have to be too fancy here. Try to keep it simple when we're up a piece. And this is probably a little too greedy to take the pawn on h7. I wouldn't, you know, dismiss it entirely, though. Here's another good move. Maybe bishop b5. Bishop b5 a la the dragon game I played earlier. This is going to ensure another exchange of pieces, basically. That's pretty brutal. And there's no way he can avoid this ultimately being dominated. So, another common response after queen takes d5 is the non-committal knight f3. Yeah, I've seen a lot of these games with queen takes d5, knight f3. And black plays like bishop g4. I've even seen some games with like bishop g4, bishop e2. Knightich played this once. Bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3, and that's just bad for black. That's not a good idea. Bishop takes f3, but I'm going to bring this guy back to the center. I mean, rather than go out on the wing here, bring it back to the center. Heading for d3. Black still cannot rescue this knight. And that's going to be exchanged off. And knight comes to d3. We play a4 or a3. a4 probably. And rook e1. So black is just down a piece for nothing. Yeah, I mean, I'm unimpressed by knight f3. You know, I think that objectively it's playable, but it's probably not quite as good as the main line. It's frustrating to play against the Scandinavian. I think it's an opening that people realize now because of Carlsen playing it, that it's not bad for black. If you play it in this, as I said, if you play it in this Caro-Kann style, if you play like a wild man with queen d6, you know, you're going to lose games. That's a different story. That's like black playing for a win. But in queen a5, queen d8, black plays normally. You're playing just, you know, trying to kind of frustrate white with a very solid position. As I know, like, the chess streamer John Bartholomew plays the Scandinavian in quite a solid way, you know. Carlsen in a solid way. This is not meant to be like a wild opening. It's just meant to be an alternative to the Caro-Kann. Very, very solid. People tend to underestimate it. Okay, this is... One solution is just like trading on the pieces here. Maybe, you know, the quickest way to win. If we get down to an ending, you know, the quickest way to win, if this was a blitz game, very fast blitz game, like a 1-minute game or what have you, you know, I think I like just giving up the rooks and forcing this piece up, minor piece ending, because if you need to win quickly, the extra minor piece really shows its strength the most when you reach a simplified situation. So every little advantage matters more. Trying to make something useful out of this game, every little advantage matters more when you trade down into a simplified ending. So an extra knight is like being up a queen in the middle game or something, more or less. Whereas with two rooks on the board, you know, it wouldn't matter as much. So let's see what we've got here. Challenges Mirza, Andrea, Perihelions, Shaggy Britches. I really can't play 2 games. Flowers for Allah needs to challenge me to... he needs to challenge me, or she, probably he, needs to challenge me to a faster time control. Allah, I can only play... Flowers, I can only play 8-3 maximum. So don't challenge me to 10-10 because we don't have time for that kind of long game here. Yeah, I don't understand this really, the point here. But it should be over in a few moves. No stalemates. Pre-move. Okay. So Mirza Yakabadze from Georgia. Perhaps. I'm playing white. We'll go c4. Played some e4, d4. You mentioned you're looking for a good weapon against a Slav. Do you mean by the regular Slav, semi-Slav, or both? Yeah, I mean both. Exactly, like everything. No, I mean, well, I just need to study. You know, maybe refresh my old knowledge. The other day I beat Shevningen in the Simul last week with a sharp line in the semi-Slav, but that variation with a4 that I played, I'm not sure how good it is objectively. But I think you're right, Shevningen. We should probably separate these things into different openings because they really are different openings. So we should treat them as such. Now e6, heading back into Tarish territory. Now d4 is d takes c4. So normally I'm taking here. He took back with the pawn. It's much more stubborn to take back with the knight. I think that variation is very tough for white to get an advantage against. So I'm always happy to see pawn takes pawn rather than knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn was also Romanian Grandmaster Mihai Shubas, one of his most hated enemies. Alright, well, I'll go into the main variation with bishop g5. D takes c is, of course, also very interesting. We haven't really had a topical Tarrasch player play against us on the stream before. I have a lot of amateur players who try to play the Tarrasch, but they play strange variations. We haven't really faced anyone strong. Again, another side variation here with bishop e6. We haven't really faced any Tarrasch experts. Because in the main lines of the Tarrasch, if you're I've had games with Magaramov, for example, in Blitz, and you play an expert in the main lines of this Tarrasch, and it's very hard for white to prove anything against Elmar. So bishop e6. This is an old line. I guess queen a4. We have had this on occasion. I think the last time I played this position was some random guy at the chess and poker event in Prague last year at the European Poker Tour. I ended up not winning. I think it was a draw. Somebody played bishop e6 against me. Maybe not. That was a different line. Not sure. But this just drops a pawn. Knight takes c6. He resigned. So Mirza was a little nervous or something. Sorry about that, man. Maybe he was nervous about being on stream, have everybody watch him play. He just dropped a pawn on c6 and resigned. Just relax and play a game, man. Andrea. So some people get kind of camera shy, I think, watching the game on the stream. Against Semislav, I could recommend you an interesting sideline. Bishop e2, d takes c4, a4. Wow. Thank you, Sheveningen, for a suggestion, man. In the semi-slot, bishop e2, d takes c4, a4. That is really something original. I'll check that out and let you know if I find anything good there. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can send an email to me, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. Also, you can contact me about chess training. Oh, I just blundered. To hang my head in shame. I blundered knight takes e4 and he didn't take it. Unbelievable. So d6 is really nice, man. Thank you for taking it easy on me. We're of course only half serious, but you know, behind every joke there's a little bit of honesty, I guess. Bishop takes c6. Nowadays I'm avoiding the Berlin defense, so when I played castles I was like, oh god, what am I gonna do? So once again a question here arises, you know, about a6. It's a slow move, but still I have to give up the bishop pair. This is played by some players, but h5 is just losing. This is perhaps some sort of fishing pole type thing with knight to g4. Yeah, I say it's just losing. I mean, it's losing a pawn, concretely. I guess some sort of idea to play knight g4 that you might have... This might even be analyzed by some crazy maniac master. Looks like something my old commentary assistant, Brian Wall, would have said. h5 and knight g4. It's obviously not sound, but... is that the idea here? Well, there's no other idea, so what can you do? So, I mean, I think that if we take on d6 and play e takes d, bishop takes d6, e5, bishop c5 may not be that clear, for example. Black's pieces look fairly active. Queen takes d8, king takes d8, rook e2, and I'm a little bit on the defensive there. So I would think seriously about, you know, of course, h3 may be one of the situations where he sacks a piece on g4 and I'll get mated with queen h4 if I try to take it. So in this situation, I would slow down and think about, like, you know, is there some way I can play this in a simpler way to maintain a solid advantage without any risk? Well, bishop g5 looks like an interesting developing move for white. Bishop g5, and if f6, pawn takes f6, we have a lot of defensive potential there with like bishop h4 or bishop f4. So, I mean, and bishop e7, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7. Black kind of loses a lot of steam from the position, I would think. So he instantly played f6. I mean, queen d7 also deserves some kind of consideration. Yeah, I don't think that Andrei's playing too fast again. I did criticize him earlier in previous streams about this, but now I like bishop h4, blocking the h pawn, kind of freezing everything, keeping f2 protected. I don't see black really having anything at all in this position. No threat. And I think I should just keep developing my pieces. There's what idea for black here exactly? Maybe knight e5 to play bishop h3 or bishop g4. We have a lot of options. Bishop g3, very solid. We don't want to play h3. There's no reason to weaken the position. Knight d4 looks good. as well. Because h5 is hanging. That's going to kind of cause black some problems. We've got the threat of knight f5 check. So this actually looks pretty good. Pinning his knight to his h5 pawn. And beginning some active operations of my own. You know, knight f5. We could threaten even h3 later on to kick him out. And remember whose king is in the center here, whose king is safe. But again, black playing too fast. We also got just simply f3, which will just kick him out. You can play like that sometimes. So black doesn't have any sort of justification for this. Pawn down with a bad structure, king in the center, and nothing concrete. I wish it were mandatory to play d4. Flowers for Allah. Do I really want to grab this? Is there any sort of danger involved in taking on there? I mean, if it was his move and he wasn't getting in check, he could actually almost trap my queen. But objectively, I mean, this is... Queen takes h5 followed by maybe knight f7. There are some dangers here. Maybe king h1. Though these got rook g4. Queen takes h5, knight f7, knight f5, rook h8. Is actually kind of complicated. Queen takes h5, knight f7. We go for it here. Quickly play knight f7, but I don't have to do that. I can play bishop g3 here. That looks trapping my own queen, almost. Bishop g3, not really trapping my queen. Yeah, it's pretty close to getting trapped. f3 wins my bishop with rook h8 now. Knight f5. Ooh. That's got to be a killer. Knight f5 sort of does everything. Interference, defending the bishop on h4. We got threats along the line if he takes. So, okay, this is good enough. You can't take that extra time to the grave with you. That's what I said before. So yeah, I told you guys the joke, right? That, well, he moved again. Bishop d7. Where black is almost paralyzed here. You could play rook h8, but I just come back to the center, most likely. Queen e2. I think the problem facing black is if he moves his queen, you know, I have bishop takes f6. Okay, now bishop e6. If I play knight f3 now, trapping my own queen, probably not a good idea. Well, it doesn't quite trap my own queen, does it? Not quite. Almost. Now he's hanging f6. That looks like too much. Now his king is trapped. He has no threats and nothing to do. So, Andrea, take your time. He can't take his time. He's like a little hyperactive. Yeah, you need to take more time. But you have good ideas. And so I'd like to see what would happen if you actually spent like a minute on the key moment in the game rather than 10 or 15 seconds. Because you have good ideas. This was ambitious, the way like you sacrificed material and stuff, but I feel like you could do better. I'm not even going to take that rook. Just develop the rest of my pieces. Pizzas. 95 is a threat. Or is it? He stopped knight d4, it looks like. Knight g5 is also good. All the pieces are in the party. Coordination. No unnecessary pawn weaknesses. All pieces maximum. And we've got threat. Got a threat. At least one threat. With a minute left. Increment. So I was going to repeat the story about one of my simul games yesterday that now he saves that. All right, now we start to think about being again a little bit practical somehow. E5. Bishop takes f5, e6. That looks pretty interesting. Interesting. I am not up any pieces. This is kind of a liberal move, but I just feel like it's the right move for the situation. He's trying to get me to hang mate in 1. But pawn takes e6, d6. That's a problem. Notice that the bishop on f6, guys, protects b2. He didn't have that, you know, the threat of rook takes b2. It's a pretty nasty situation here. We're just taking stuff with check, but I've got to watch the g2, so you just don't want to blunder that g2 mate. Man, this is really overkill. Alright, so you need to get the king out of the center. I don't like that gambit. It's nice for like bullet chess, but I wouldn't play it in a long game. Perihelions 7-3. So we'll play a d4. We had... Oh, we got your ruins here. Awesome. I know that was a tough game. You must have needed some rust. What's with the Freudian rust comment? You must have needed some rest after that. Here, I'm just going to pre-move. Pre-move c4, e5, c4. I mean, c4 is never really bad if I pre-moved it. What's the worst thing that could happen? So, Perihelions, new opponent, 1800 from the USA. Wow, are you West Coast or East Coast, Perihelions? Somewhere in the middle. Holy cow. Yesterday, my son, who's like 6 years old, he literally asked me, what does it mean, holy cow? And I was like, you know, that's a good question, dude. How do you define, like, the meaning of holy cow? I was like, well, it's just kind of a joke. So anyway, finally, the story I was saying was, I was playing a game on my simul, and I played 1g3, and the computer engine said that g3 is dubious. This is the annotation, you know, if you do like computer analysis or whatever in your browser on lichess. It said g3 is dubious, e4 exclamation, best move. I was thinking the spirit of Bobby had taken over the Stockfish engine or something. But it's probably true. I mean, objectively, e4 mobilizes the most pieces, so... Not to everybody's taste, though. I don't think g3 should get a bad rap, though. But I kind of agree. Like, it gives up white's opening advantage. c4 is still, like, there's a tiny hope you can get an advantage in the English opening. But with g3, you're, like, going over the... You're just falling off over the edge to the precipice of, like, equality or fighting for a draw with white. By the way, guys, here, black played what was always considered to be an inaccurate move order. Although I have seen some modern grandmasters playing this stuff for black. Like h6. It seems like white should be able to maintain some sort of advantage here. Go Penguins. I'm watching the NFL, and my moderator is just into hockey. Go Patriots. They're 6-1 now. We took out the other Pittsburgh team. We gave up on baseball because it's obviously a wonderful World Series. The Cleveland Indians, where did they come from? Why did the Yankees have to trade like the best reliever in Major League Baseball to this team? The Cleveland Indians. Rookie 8. Alright, Rookie 8 here. This is an old school way of playing for black. I guess we'll do like Rook C1. Kind of battle for the tempo, it's called. D takes C4 or C takes D. Flowers for Allah, just wondering, can we challenge as black or white? Yeah, they trolled me the other day, Flowers for Allah, where everybody challenged me and made me white in every single game. And I didn't realize what was going on till after like 7 games. I prefer the random challenges, but if it's like the first game you've ever played with me on the stream, I guess it doesn't matter which one you start with. I think that people challenge me to certain colors. I don't really care. But if you do like challenge me to white or black, you know, in the future try to balance it out. I don't really want to play like white or black every game against the same opponent. So, Perihelions, this looks like some kind of Capablanca, Alekhine Capablanca World Championship match game here. Bishop takes c4 and knight b6, not really the usual approach. And then we have a choice. I guess we'll go bishop b3 in this situation. Bishop d3 is not a bad move either. Kind of tough call. Why do I prefer bishop b3? Keeping pressure on this diagonal, it's more... But there's nothing really going on that diagonal. I might be able to put pressure on h7. It's actually a pretty tough call. The Cleveland Indians came from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Cleveland Indians came out of nowhere, and they're beating everyone. But I think they're going to get stopped by the Cubs. That's just my gut instinct. I don't know why. But maybe not. Okay, bishop d3. So what about you, Jeroen? Do you like American football? I never asked you that. I don't think we ever discussed that. So I started streaming, actually, well, I probably started streaming like right after the Super Bowl last year, so football was over. And yeah, your typical American chess streamer from Budapest, Hungary. Bishop d3. Isa Volpes. Isa, are you Perihelions? You're just wishing me good luck. I think you're just wishing me good luck. Not everyone challenged you as white. Well, I think most people challenge me to a random game. Now here we have the interesting situation. So what does the former world champion do here? You know, Alekhine, famous for his play in these Queen's Gambit type positions with bishop g5. And I think knight e4 is is the move that the great master would probably play here. I don't think this is an exact position from a World Championship match between Capablanca and Alekhine, but this kind of thing came up in a lot of Alekhine games. If you want to learn to play the Bishop G5 variation in the Queen's Gambit Declined, you really have to look at their games. But the idea is basically to trade dark squared bishops on the right terms. Bishop takes e7 is okay, but knight e4 is ensuring that I'm not going to trade pieces, at least one set of pieces. At the most I trade one set of pieces here, rather than maybe two. We don't want to trade too many pieces when we have a space advantage. That's the general concept that's very useful. So, but there's a question about my knight getting kind of discombobulated with knight e4, knight g5, maybe having to go back to, I don't know, h3 or something. Not really what I necessarily want. If f6, black would weaken the king side. I would consider even bishop f4 there, with the black king side very, very weak on the white squares after f6. Yeah, well, too much commercials on TV, no matter what you're watching. Media world we live in. Better to watch me streaming chess than watch American TV. So, knight e4. Yeah, I guess if I was living in the US, I was a hardcore American football fan. I'd try to get some kind of, direct access. NFL. But even then you've got commercials from the NFL or whatever. Alright. Anyway, that's enough whining about TV. Knight e4. What's up, man? Come on, you gotta play maybe f6 or trade pieces, and then what? I mean, I'm just saying f6, you have a lot of weaknesses. Still, it might be the best try. So here, what would the master do? Knight g3, avoiding all exchanges. Kind of interesting. Not the optimal square. G3 is a bad square in general. But anyway, we need to make a move. We got just 4 minutes left. There is a similar Alekhine game where he goes like knight e4, knight g3, but it's not this exact position. It's slightly different. I was even thinking about sacrificing a piece. Like h6, bishop h4, g5, knight takes g5, pawn takes g5, bishop takes g5. That looks kind of scary for black. And now, well, again, I have to trade one set of pieces. It looks like that's going to be unavoidable. I don't want to do h4. It's just too radical. And then get the last pieces in the game, I guess. Rook e1. In a preparation for like e4, knight f4, bishop f1 maybe. But I can also play like bishop b1 and preemptive strike. All of our pieces are in the game. We're ready to go. Ready to go. So nothing's going to hit me with tempo, and I'm ready to just kind of try to start an assault on the black king side with all pieces sort of shifted over. Larry Christensen calls it the student body attack. You've got kind of revolution here. Every piece here I've got is in a position where it could potentially directly go for the black king. It looks like this knight is very lonely on f4. Very lonely. And I don't think it can even be supported by anything. So I can simply play like queen d2. But that's kind of a naive move. I might have something better than that. How to break it up. How to open up the position or attack directly on the king side. I'm not really sure. It's not that easy, in fact. D5. I can't really do it. It's not so simple here. E5, knight G5. This is not so easy for me. I mean, I can play E5 or Queen D2, knight G6, and then what? I guess sinking a knight into D6 is kind of classic here. All right, we'll go with this idea. You know, knight E4, knight D6. A knight on the 6th, and some attacking chances. Very powerful outpost. He can always sack the exchange, but only have one pawn for it. If he wants to get rid of that with like rook D8. Well, the position is very unpleasant for black, to say the least. Simply G3. G3, H4, H5. This move, I see. Knight F4 check, I don't think works. He has this, though. Maybe we have some kind of knight G1 or knight D2. Gotta watch out for tactics here, but I want to embarrass his knight on G5, if possible. We can support with F4. Black is playing with very little space. F4 just wins a piece. I think you have to play F6 last move and knight F7, but it's kind of risky. So this just wins. We've got E3 covered. Vitally, this square is not an option. So strategically, success here for white. Couldn't really organize enough exchanges. The space advantage was too much. We've got 40 minutes left. I've got challenges from Flowers for Allah, Drummer, Geese, and those 3 games will be played at least. I can't promise 4. We'll see what happens. Flowers for Allah played an interesting game in the Benko last night in my simul. Yesterday you got a plugin for Chrome called Better Twitch TV, watching you in theater mode. Anyway, it seems like you need Chrome to use the engine properly on lichess. If you use Mozilla Firefox, there's some functions that you can't use, like adjusting the CPU and the features of the analysis engine. I just realized that the other day. All right, let's try G6. So yesterday I got really lucky against Flowers for Allah. It was a Benko where I was white, and he played well, and I not so well, and we reached finally, after I blundered a pawn, we went from a drawn position to a winning position for him, and then I missed a forced win, and then you had an amazing study like win, actually, in that ending, where I queen first, and you have 2 pawns on the 7th rank. There could have been this ending where I promote to a queen. There's no other pieces left. Excuse me, like just a pure pawn ending, where I promote, and Allah actually has 2 pawns on the 7th, or like 3 pawns on the 7th, and I have like a whole queen and promote with check, and I still lose because I can't stop him from promoting with an extra queen on the board, and he's up like 4 pawns or something, so it's like decisive. Welcome everybody to my stream. We are doing live blitz and classical chess here Monday to Friday on lichess and Twitch, 10 to 12:30 every morning, CEST, Monday through Friday, as I said, and also Sunday simul, which is 18:30 or 6:30 p.m. every Sunday here, as we did last night. This is the Kovalek variation, at least that's what we call it in the U.S. after Mr. Kovalek quit chess to be a... I don't know what he does, though. He must have had a job outside of chess. Queen a5. Now he's quite elderly. Kovalek was a very strong player. He's now writing articles for the Huffington Post chess column. Queen a5. This was popular in the 80s, first with like Kovalek and Soltis. Did a lot of pioneering work on this variation. Flowers for Allah saw the ending. Yeah, I mean, we both made a lot of mistakes, but I found a really very funny position where I actually can promote with check and I still lose. It's very funny. King and queen. With the king and queen, I can't stop several passed pawns. But in the opening, I had the better game, and then I made a bad move, and you equalized. Made a nice exchange sacrifice to be a little bit better. I had to be accurate, but I made a mistake, and I was actually losing. Okay, so now e4. There are two lines for black, bishop g4 and e5. I think e5 is considered better than bishop g4, but I prefer the type of plan with bishop g4. e5, d5, c takes d5, c takes d5, and then I think I'm supposed to play bishop g4 anyway. h3, bishop takes f3, maybe queen takes f3, and then black plays like king h7 and tries to trade dark squared bishops on h6. It's a very odd variation for black. Now queen c2, I've never seen that before. But it does get out of the pin, so I'm not sure something like queen a5 is any good for black, generally speaking. Knight fd7. I'm not so sure that queen c2... Actually, though, knight fd7, I have to be careful about my bishop on g4 here. So queen c2 is an interesting move. It kind of leaves my bishop out there hanging out to dry, so to speak. Maybe I should take on f3 anyway. Never seen this, and as I said, I never want to see it again. Queen c2. Getting out of the pin. What if I play queen h5 anyway? Maybe that does make some sense. Queen h5. There's some danger of a forced draw or something like that. There's also knight e2, very strange idea. Like queen h5, knight e2, bishop takes f3, knight f4. Almost trapping my queen in some lines. There's some strange possibilities here. The queen's not that well placed itself on c2, though. It could actually be somewhat exposed on the c file. If the c file were to open up, well, this is why I think you should take time when you're encountering a new idea. You know, we have increment here, we have a few minutes. I don't want to make a mistake, and I want to kind of get a baseline of what's going on in this position. Get a feel for the position. Alexander Ivanov, my good friend, a lot of people criticize him for getting in time pressure in his tournament games, but you know, he'll spend up to like 45 minutes to an hour sometimes in a 2-hour time control on one move, just to really try to figure out the entire position. That's basically what he does. He tries to figure out the entire position in one moment, you know, and he has the visionary ability to do that. Here, e5 again, also possible. Alright, I'm going to go with this. Knight g5 is not a problem because of h6, I guess. So, knight h4, g5, also very strange. Not certain about that, though. Maybe knight h4. Maybe I missed knight h4. I shouldn't tell him, but that's a problematic move. Because queen on c2 supports knight h4, knight f5. And I think there I've got to be careful. Okay, maybe it's not a terrible position for me, but it's pretty weird. Not a position I'm really comfortable with. g5, knight f5, bishop takes f5, pawn takes f5, knight d7. And it looks like maybe g4. Yeah, he played it. There's a surprise, right? Well, if I tell him the move, he's probably going to play it. I found that. And here, we have knight g4, but h3, I'm just shut down. Maybe g4 is worth considering. Certain problems with that, though. I'll hold off on g4. I've got to be able to play rook b8 to defend against queen b3. We'll play g4 if necessary. You like h3, g4? Black's position isn't lost, but it's somewhat dubious, I think. I don't really like this. This isn't really correct. For some players who are very tactically oriented, this kind of position would like be okay, this is okay. It's a little weird, but for me it's very ugly, and I'm not a real fan of it. Knight g4. Well, there's no time here. He's threatening rook takes pawn. What is wrong with queen a5? Nothing really. I mean, it's what is wrong with queen a5? You mean you wrote 9 queen a5, but you're talking about what exactly? 10 queen a5. Like you're talking about going back with queen a5? Well, he's got a better game, but it probably is the best move after this blunder, allowing knight h4, which I didn't see. Maybe I should just admit my mistake and go back to a5. Now I'm stuck in this bizarre position that's better for white. I don't have any bad pieces, so even the bishop on g7 has open diagonal. Just that I don't really trust my position. My pawn structure is a little bizarre. Weakness on g5. Maybe it's not so bad. I just feel white's better here. But it's not like winning. Just a little bit ugly. In any case, it's worth looking into this. Now he played d5. Looks like it weakens his position a little bit. We have choices. Now knight g4, f3. I don't really see anything wrong with pawn takes pawn. Now knight takes pawn. Knight takes. Wow, bishop takes. That's very tactical. I mean, he's got to watch out here. He's got a threat on b7, but I have threats too. Do I? I thought I did, but maybe not. Maybe I have to play rook b8. It's kind of ugly. Everything's protected. Our pieces are fairly active. White's not that scary. We have dark squares. This position is playable. I still don't like it because we're backward along the open file. Maybe that's the thing about the position I hate the most for black here. It's kind of like an accelerated dragon. I played g5, which weakens my king side. We have some dark square blockade strategy, like in accelerated dragon. But still, I'm very angry with myself for allowing knight h4. I didn't see it at first. Then I saw it as soon as as soon as I played queen h5. I was looking at knight e1 and knight g5 and even knight d2, but knight h4 evaded me. Now, it's convenient. I mean, I'm defending h7. I mean, with h5, f7, g5 is protected. It's not that easy for white to play here. It's kind of closed structure. 14 pawns on the board. No knights for white. I've got a knight that can hop around to c5, e5, f6, do some damage. Maybe knight g4 could actually, he could get in trouble on the king side. I've got the knight, bishop, and queen, which can attack him on the king side. And he's got the white square bishop is a good defensive piece, though. Even if I won the h2 pawn with check, he's still not going to get mated. He's always got like bishop g2. Yeah, someone mentioned g4 with knight f3 check. That's definitely an idea. Let's play bishop e3 now. Well, knight f6. He also stopped bishop d4 here. So bishop e3 is a good move. Unfortunately, whoops. I've got to be very careful now. I was thinking knight f6. Try to get some counterplay. Bishop takes a7 and knight g4. We got to do something here before it's too late. Even if I lose a pawn or whatever. It looks like the plan of knight e5, g4 is kind of slow. If I lose a pawn, I lose a pawn. It's not the end of the world. We play bishop g2. That's a safe move. Now maybe b5. No, bishop takes a7. I have to play b6. My white squares are very weak. But at the same time, he needs the white square bishop to kind of protect his king side. I hope my my stream is okay. My other laptop's kind of freaking out. Got some kind of error, bug or something. Okay, rook on ad1. Now knight g4. Knight g4. I guess we're just trying to hold on here. Blockade. Should be defensible. Flowers for Allah. He's from the UK. Yeah, how's my stream look, guys? Because I've got a bug with my other machine. But I think it's just something with the screen. Not necessarily a problem with the machine. It looks like it's better now. Okay, so unpleasant situation for me. I've got to play a5 now. White has tactics. Be careful. Rook takes d6 might be bad for your health. He was trying to set up that, it looks like. You can play queen f8 maybe. Rook takes d6, b5 last move would have surprised white, I think. It looks like we're okay in this position. King just chills out on the dark squares and kind of blockade draw. But I mean, anything could happen. Opposite colored bishops, he could end up worse here. I don't think objectively white's worse, but at this point it looks like it's anybody's game after rook c8. It was an ugly position, to say the least, for me. And I'm very fortunate that I didn't lose. Because this queen c2 move, I reacted badly. And queen h5 isn't good. I'm not really sure what the best move is there, though. That's the problem. Now what? What now? Rook c5? And I want to get some counterplay going on. We finally got it. Looks like with b5. Desperately needed counterplay for black. Again, we borrowed the old accelerated dragon, queen on f8. Man, I'm so comfortable in this kind of situation. It like seems weird, but I'm used to crawling around on my back rank with queen h8, queen f8, queen g7, g5. This is not a strange position anymore, for me at least. Thank you for the game, though. Well played opening. Drummer is up, and I'm going to open with e4. We've only played drummer once. Don't recall that game. Queen a followed by bishop a3. You mean bishop a3? Where do you think I learned this? Queen a5, you mean queen h5, followed by bishop h3. Yeah, I mean, I was spending a lot of time with Roman when, you know, in the era right before he actually started, well, right when he was started making that videos with John Fanning. I mean, I don't know, like, specifically which position, you know, we're talking about queen h5, bishop h3. It's a general idea. But in most cases, that doesn't really come about, you know, unless white plays badly. This idea of queen h5, bishop h3, it doesn't happen very often in my experience when you play the Kabbalic variation. It's just kind of a threat, you know, for that sort of attack to happen, but it doesn't actually take place very often. Usually white's doing some other stuff, and you don't really have time to go like queen h5, queen h3. It's an idea that if white just plays very passively, you could go queen h5. Of course, I was with Roman firsthand, and we played consultation blitz games in that exact position, before. I've seen him, in action, doing like queen h5, trying to attack in these sort of positions. So, but it's hard to actually, get an attack like that. It's usually like other stuff's going on. The queen's on other squares on the queen side. There's a lot of different possibilities for both sides. But yeah, clearly after queen c2, queen h5 is not a good move. I need to find the right idea there. Roman's actually, Roman is the one who got me playing bishop g4. I mean, actually, maybe it's, I thought black move. Maybe d6 is the main move here. Maybe, oops. Okay, well, I'm not going to ask for a take back. I meant to play c4, but we'll play this position. Roman is the one who got me playing bishop g4, but I later had some problems with bishop g4. His analysis wasn't really completely worked out. There was a game later where I played Wojtkiewicz, and I got in big trouble. And because of Roman's analysis not being really that worked out. Now, maybe later he improved it in his videos, I'm not sure. But if I had to recommend, I'd probably tell people to play e5 instead of bishop g4. That's the way that Soltis played, and a lot of strong grandmasters. So bishop g4 is kind of speculative. I think it's safer to play e5. Okay, I made a bad move here, c3, but it's still, I'm white and I shouldn't really be worse. I meant to play c4. But I don't want to cry for a take back every time I make a mouse slip. So if it was a really horrible, like lost a pawn, maybe I would ask for a take back. But let's just play the position and live with our mouse slip. So Railbird, yeah, I mean bishop g4 maybe. It's just a little bit too dangerous for white. In the aforementioned game against Wojciech, I was very lucky. He later said he was on antibiotics. Alec was a good friend of mine later, and he had an excuse for getting brutally checkmated in that game. But I was lucky. You know, he was winning on the queen side, and later on I kind of like whipped up this insane attack out of nothing that I should have been busted in that game. Bishop g4, h3 is the main move. Bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3. And Wojciech actually played like very strongly. You know, rook b1 in some moment, and like h4, he started to try to even take over on both sides of the board. So I never really actually found an answer for black. I still continue to play it in blitz and stuff. But I think if I had to play this position in a serious tournament game, I would probably try to play e5. It's a little safer. We've got knight c4, getting the knight in the game, and you know, sometimes Roman's opening analysis is a little bit like, you know, there's some holes in some of his lines that he doesn't really have a fix for, you know. But you know, for the most part, most of it's good. Bishop e7. Coming toward the center now. Should I play bishop d3 or bishop e2? Bishop d3 usual here, but now there's no pressure on e4. So maybe it's better for me to play just bishop e2 and looking for like bishop g4 exchanges. Why do you have to find an active move? In situation e5, queen h5 seems to be crying for activity. There are plenty of other moves. Plenty. Well, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's plenty. It's hard to find a good move for black, actually. I don't know if there's any good moves. Honestly, I'd rather be white. Castles. I think Karpov would agree. But you have to, when you're black, you have to find something. I think if we want to find the best line against the g3 variation of the King's Indian, we need to look elsewhere for black. Queen a5 is fun, but I don't think it's objectively that great a variation for black. So if I needed to prove it was like there was a way for black to equalize for black in the King's Indian against g3, that probably wouldn't be my choice. But I like to play it. It's fun. But objectively not necessarily the best. Knight e3. I think that against g3, black has a lot of choices. Difficult to say whether you want to try to play for a win or you want to equalize. That's a big question. Bishop e6 here. Black, speaking of equalize, a4 is kind of interesting, but then b4, I don't think I have anything here. I wasn't convinced by a4, b4. Objectively, we don't have an advantage. This dark square bishop looks like a bad piece, but actually d5's kind of risky, but it might be okay. But black is letting my white square bishop become quite powerful. Objectively, it's still probably fine. Equal, I guess. Yeah, against the Kalashnikov, I really don't know the theory that well. But I just made the mouse slip, so this is not an excuse for that. Mouse slips kind of... No cure for mouse slips. Bishop f3. This is equal. We do have the potential to create a passed pawn on the queen side, I guess. So if I had to pick a side, maybe I would rather be white here. But objectively, I don't think I should be better. Queen e6, this is correct. Now what, like queen b3? Hoping for some kind of infinitesimal advantage here. There is this nasty problem along this diagonal, and then if he moves his rook away, maybe a4 could leave some advantage for me based on the a file. But I think if he defends accurately here, he's okay. Maybe rook c8. Or, well, the problem is queen takes queen, pawn takes queen. He can't play rook c8. That's the problem. So he played queen f6, which is starting to look a little dangerous, but still, knight e4. Isn't that convincing? Where am I going after knight e4? And he has ideas of like knight a5 maybe. All right. We have to try to get some coordination on that, and a new weakness. Try to create a weakness in black's pawn chain. Some sort of target would be nice. Knight a5. But the problem is his rook's hanging. Queen d5 allows rook d8. Queen c2. Queen a2. Still not convinced I'm winning here. Black's hanging on. Drummer, oh, from Poland. Yeah, he's got the classic. Everybody seems to be 200 points higher in around this rating range. Everyone seems to be 200 points higher in classical than they are in bullet and blitz. I'm seeing this. This is a definite trend, but I don't feel it at my rating level. We're actually higher in blitz than in classical. But I'm in the top 50 in classical, so there seems to be a kind of ceiling. Knight c6, simple move. Knight e4. Somehow I didn't realize he could simply play knight c6 here. We have a strong move. Maybe take, queen e4. He's worse here. What would Karpov do here? I think Karpov would have very good chances to win. Queen e4. Slight advantage. And then rook a6, which wins. Or does it? Maybe I'm being too optimistic. Rook a6 doesn't win. Damn. But why doesn't it win? He has a defense. Well, it wins a pawn, it looks like. That should be enough. Well, he just blundered. You have to play queen g5. Only move. Rook takes c6. Rook takes c6, queen takes c6, queen takes, and queen takes b5. Guys, we have time for one last game against Geese. Sorry for you other guys. I'd like to keep playing all day, but I have to keep the schedule. Perihelions, yeah. It seems like there's a much different... Let's check out Geese's rating. Yeah, he's fitting right into that demographic. 1900 in Blitz, 2100 in Classical. So it does seem to be the case. C takes d4. Oh. It's so painful to play this for black. Usually I play knight a6, knight c6 mostly. I guess we'll play what we know. I have played a6 on occasion, but I don't really know the theory very well in that line. So this is just a brutal variation to have to play for a win with black. I found myself on a number of occasions with black against fairly good players, wishing like I was doing anything but playing chess in this line. It's pretty unpleasant for black to have to try to win against a low-rated player in this variation. It's so easy to play for white, and there are a lot of simple plans. It's like so easy a child could do it, you know, like that could be the catchphrase for this variation. Though bishop takes f6 is a bad move. Famous last words, but it is. Geese played that quickly. I mean, you're not supposed to play bishop takes f6. You're supposed to play queen d2. Now, I don't know about this ending exactly. Am I supposed to play king e7 first in this position, or just hack off the knight on c3? Because it's very tempting to play bishop takes c3, bishop takes e4 with equality. But objectively, it might be inaccurate. You know, maybe I'm supposed to try something better. What if I play king e7? Then rook hd1. And the problem is, then I can't really get my pawn back, because what am I supposed to play? So this is some sort of forced ending. I actually don't have anything better than bishop takes c3, followed by bishop takes e4. And then he doubles rooks. Well, I don't see anything better. King e7. It's not something you study, you know. Bishop takes f6. Again, king e7, rook d1. There's nothing fancy like trapping his rook with bishop d5. Or is there? No, there's not, because the problem is, yeah, if I try to be fancy, king e7, rook on h to d1, bishop takes c3, b takes c, bishop d5. He just plays e5, and he never loses his rook. So that's actually interesting, though. I could sack a pawn in some variations for a better structure. But the problem is how to win here, how to play for a win. It's maybe he's actually looked at this. Bishop e7, just being down a pawn for the two bishops, isn't very impressive. So anyway, I mean, after this prologue, I don't see anything better than the obvious. There's nothing better than the obvious. He does have the messed up pawn structure, though. I mean, maybe this is worse than I thought for white. Again, any side moves here? No. This bishop is pretty menacing. It defends b7. It has some attacking potential. It also, this diagonal, maybe doubling his pawns. This isn't so easy for white, I guess. Maybe his rook's getting trapped. Yeah, suddenly I'm liking this now. I thought I was like equal, but it's not so clear. Now that I actually arrived here to paradise, I'm starting to like it. I'm starting to like it here. I might want to come back more often. Yeah, I don't want him getting double rooks on the 7th, but I guess once you've been to paradise, you know, it's worth going back again. I'm thinking about just trapping his rook. You know? After rook hd1, bishop d5, what? He has 95 there, actually. But even that variation is bizarre. Yeah, I mean, rook hd1, bishop d5. It looks like he could play rook e1 there and survive. Yeah, but that could be pretty beneficial transposition of moves for me. Rather than playing some stupid passive move. He played rook e1 right away. Anyway, kind of the same thing. I mean, I take, he has got the decimated pawn structure. How about the king and pawn endgame? What do you feel? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about king and pawn endgames? I'm feeling okay about it. Apparently Geese not so much. Now here I might want to take a moment to consider variations like rook c8, rook hc8, keeping a7 protected. I was actually analyzing rook h4, rook takes c3, rook takes h7, rook takes f3. That's probably better for black. And now this, as active as I can be, freezing, you know, any motion on the 5th rank, getting as much space as possible, ready to double, play h5. H5 is possible for me if he tries to go for my pawn. I'm not sure white is lost here, but it's a Pretty unpleasant situation to be in. Maybe just g6 at some point. Let's play this first. Because he's threatening to double at every moment. A good defense is the best. That's what we said, right? A good defense is the best offense. So we preemptively defend d7. King b3. Well, let's create some havoc here. I like h3. I highly recommend it. You might have another move. Not really. You could possibly play rook g3, but I don't see that really benefiting white. Maybe rook g3. Guys, this is the last game for the stream today. It's my pleasure to have you guys hang out with me and analyze these live games with viewers. If you have any interest in chess lessons or any kind of questions or suggestions for the stream or anything chess related, you can send me an email, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. And how am I going to make progress here? Progresso. Well, I think we should keep him tied down. And then try to improve the position somehow. How might that be? It's double-edged, because like king f6 might let him down on d8 sometimes. Hard to improve my king. He's got a kind of force field going on. No threats for white. I have the majority on the king side, which makes things a bit tricky, because so if I'm supposed to win this position, like ultimately I have to create a passed pawn, which means undoubling his pawns probably. And probably I shouldn't move my queen side, was what I was trying to say. He tricked me. I was going to play g6, but he tricked me. That's okay. We're still better. I mean, it might happen that I have to play like h6 and g5 to actually undouble his pawns and create ultimately a passed pawn to try to win. Played a4, which is logical. If this comes down to pawn majorities, I've got to undouble his pawns for him in the interest of my own creation of a passed pawn. That's what I said. Chess is a tough game. Oftentimes there's like competing factors in the position, you know. One hand you say, oh, you don't want to undouble his pawn. It's a weakness. On the other hand, I've got to create a passed pawn. So, but even if I undouble his pawn, he still remains with a terrible pawn structure. Isolated, isolated, doubled, doubled, isolated, isolated. And I have two islands. You know, two solid islands. This is a good island, and this is a good island here. Even with a pawn on g5. So, structurally, white is in a lot of trouble. Even if I play g5, which I probably have to make progress. But actually, we may just have rook c4. It's going to be pretty awkward for him to defend that f4 pawn if I play rook c4. If I had played it last move, actually, here. Well, he probably has to play like rook here. Rook takes rook, king f5, rook d4, hanging on. So I'm not sure. Rook c4, rook e4 is actually that great for me. Rook c4, rook back to e4. Rook takes rook, rook takes rook. I'd like his pawn on h4. Maybe he plays h4 here. And then in that kind of variation, I can do like rook c4. There it is. Rook c4, rook e4, rook takes e4, rook takes e4. King f5. Not that convincing. Well, I can't play g5 now. So we're kind of like short of possibilities. Running out of possibilities there. Rook takes e4, rook takes e4, rook c5. Or king f5. King f5, rook d4, king g4. Well, I guess that's the way we go. And that forces him to make more weaknesses. But I probably had a simpler way to play this. I don't think king f5 is a bad move. Pressure's on white here. I'm threatening king g4. Of course I could go like king g6, king h5 as well. The problem is how to make progress. Not so easy. Maybe just f6 and g5. No, it doesn't look so good. I need a direct way to make progress. But king g6, king h5, king takes h4, f5 check doesn't look that clear. Maybe we go back. We play like rook c5. If we go back, rook c5, he's threatening to penetrate. This isn't so easy. Maybe a combination of moves, like king f6. What? No, 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 no. That is not allowed. Anyway, I was going to go here. Anyway, I was going to go here. You're not allowed in there, man. I'm sorry. No entry. No entry. And then like the king can go both ways. So this king could come back or it can always threaten to go up. But now we're threatening a way to make progress, basically. I'm going to try to pick him off with like rook h5. And my king can come back and defend. That's the idea here. So we're threatening to pick him off, but there are some complications. We have to play like an improving move. We got a5. a5 check. That's the plan. a5 check and like rook takes h4. And it looks like we should be winning here. It's very technical. Not so easy, guys. Anyway, my pleasure to play this funny and fun rook endgame. Thank you, Geese, for the game, but I don't think we recommend that line for white. We'll see you guys later, and tomorrow, 10 a.m., we're back with more Blitz and Classical Chess. Thanks to Jeroen, and we will be back tomorrow. So don't forget to check out my YouTube videos, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Hopefully we'll get a video up this week reviewing some of the games from the Simul yesterday. my Sunday simul every week on lichess at 6:30 p.m. Just played it yesterday. Lots of interesting stuff to look at from that. So we will take a look this week. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.